welcome to our celebration of World Turtle Day. I am thrilled to be your host today. My name is Ann Cosma, and I want to encourage you to get ready. We're taking a deep dive into the captivating world of sea turtles. So, are you ready to be amazed and inspired as we uncover the wonders of sea turtles together? I hope so. Don't forget, you can use the chat to send in your questions, your comments. We definitely are going to be doing a Q&A, so we want to hear from you. And teachers, parents, folks everywhere watching, have your cameras ready because we will have a chance to take a selfie and celebrate today's learning. So let's make some waves as we celebrate World Turtle Day in the most shell-tastic way possible. Let the countdown begin. All right, everybody, hello and welcome to today's Flip event. I'm your host, Ann Cosma from Team Flip, and I cannot wait for today's adventure. Let's see, we've got so many folks joining in with us today, and we have some special shout outs. I see Mrs. Hamby's first grade class, Thomas E. Kearns Elementary, hello out there, welcome. And we know there are a lot of folks up in Greenville County Schools in South Carolina watching. Hello, hello. A special shout out to Chris Young Elementary School and Mrs. Saloki's class. Hello. I know there's a student in class named Liam who loves turtles. Special shout out to Shuey School in Rosemead, California. Hello, Mr. Lopez class, and hello, Shuey Sharks. And a great big hello to Grayson and Reagan in Virginia. I have some special turtle drawings for World Turtle Day. We are so excited you all are tuning in. So it's almost time for the adventure to begin. And in just a moment, we're going to be traveling to South Carolina to the aquarium to meet Elena, who is giving us a tour of the Sea Turtle Rehabilitation Center to teach us the importance of rescue, rehabilitation, and release. Are you all ready out there? I hope so. Without further ado, let's welcome Elena.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys so much for joining today. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about one of my favorite animals of all time. Of course, we're talking about sea turtles. We just had a World Turtle Day on Tuesday, but turtles are really cool animals, so we're just going to keep celebrating all throughout the week. So I've got my screen shared here, and before we get started here today, let's just get oriented to where you are all joining me from and where I am joining from as well. So if you want to go ahead and take a look at this map, go ahead and find yourself here. I'll give y'all a moment to do that. And once you've found yourself on this map, maybe see how close or how far you are to that little red star that you see there on the southeast end of the United States. That's where I'm joining from here in Charleston, South Carolina. And I did hear that we do have some friends joining from inside of the US, so I'll go ahead and zoom in a bit there. Go ahead and find your city or your state here on this map. And once again, maybe see how close or how far you could be from us here in Charleston, South Carolina. So we are right smack in the middle of the coastline of South Carolina. That's a photo of our aquarium right here. We are so lucky we get to be right on the water here at the aquarium. And this is a very special kind of water that you're looking at here as well. This is called the Charleston Harbor. And you might have noticed from the map, we're right next door to the Atlantic Ocean. But this is brackish water here. So this brackish water is a mix of fresh and salt water together. So we've got the Atlantic Ocean right next to us on one side, and we're also surrounded by 3 freshwater rivers. So it makes kind of a special brackish water, salt marsh ecosystem that we do see lots of sea turtles in pretty often, and other kinds of turtles too. So here at the South Carolina Aquarium, we do have a sea turtle hospital, and that's where we take in sick and injured sea turtles from the wild, make them feel all better here in our hospital, and then re-release them back out there to the ocean. And there are 4 main kinds of sea turtles that we have here that we can see along our coastline and offshore here as well. So we'll go through all of those species that we see here, right here on the top left. This is called a loggerhead sea turtle. And if we have any friends joining from South Carolina, you might recognize the loggerhead sea turtle. That's our state reptile here in South Carolina. And that is because this is the species that's coming up to nest on our beaches here. And we're so excited. We're actually right at the start of our nesting season. And so far, we already have almost 600 loggerhead nests in the state. I think our number as of this morning was 593. So we're kind of seeing those climb a little bit. Last year, we had an awesome year for nesting. We had over 8,000 nests in the state. So we're hopefully, maybe we'll beat that record this year too. We'll keep everybody updated on that. We also get green sea turtles here in South Carolina. This is a green sea turtle on the top right. They're actually the second largest hard-shelled species of sea turtle, and they can be up to 5 feet long, up to 500 pounds when they're fully grown. Down here on the lower right is called a leatherback sea turtle. This is the largest species of sea turtle, and they are up to 8 feet in length from the top of their beak all the way to the back of their shell, and they can weigh up to 2,000 pounds. They're definitely the largest species of turtle. We don't really see them too close to shore here in South Carolina, but definitely migrating past us offshore. And last but not least, we see Kemp's Ridley sea turtles. That is this little turtle down here, and this is actually the smallest species of sea turtle and the most critically endangered species of sea turtle in the world as well. So these are all of the different kinds of sea turtles that we could see here in our state, and of course see here in our sea turtle hospital as well. So we're going to get to take a special tour of the sea turtle hospital, meet a couple of turtles, and we're going to walk through what it's like to rescue these sea turtles, rehab these sea turtles, and of course send them back out to the ocean. Awesome. So before we do that, I'm going to flip my camera around too so I can show you the space that we are in today. So maybe some of us watching have been to the South Carolina Aquarium before, and if you have, we are getting a special VIP tour today. So this is not a space that you can see if you come in to visit us in person. So today we're going to get to see really cool backup spaces where our biologists are constantly taking care of our turtles. We've got a couple of biologists working back here right now too. So if you come in person, you might hang out on the other side of this little glass wall. We've got some guests hanging out in there as well. Over here on this side, you can see our CT scanner in this room over here that is kind of lit up on the wall. And right next door is our surgery suite. So these are real rooms that we are able to get x-rays of sea turtles and do surgeries if it is necessary. First patient that we're going to meet today is actually in one of our biggest tanks. You can probably see a really big shell down here too. I'm going to come over to the top of the tank and see if we can see this turtle a little bit better. All right, and if you see that, it kind of looks like a giant rock hanging out down there on the bottom of that tank. That is a loggerhead sea turtle. So the loggerhead sea turtle, again, that is our state reptile here in South Carolina. These are the turtles that are coming up to nest on our beaches right now, right at this time of year. And this loggerhead in particular is named B, and B is an adult loggerhead female. So this is really cool too. A lot of the times when we get our sea turtles in from the wild, we have no idea how old our sea turtles are, but we can kind of take a guess on how old they are based on their size. So we can kind of guess, maybe this is a juvenile sea turtle, which could be anywhere from about 1 to 15 years old. Maybe this is a subadult, kind of like a teenager turtle, anywhere from 15 to 29, and they usually reach maturity or full-grown size by 30 or 35. And B here is definitely a full-grown turtle. Just over 200 pounds and probably still has some growing to do as well. And it looks like B has actually taken a little nap down here at the bottom. But B was found floating in the intercoastal waterway. And there was a couple things that kind of gave us a hint and gave our biologists a hint that maybe this turtle wasn't doing too well and probably needed our help. And one of those things is actually something that we can see on her shell right here. We look at the back of this turtle shell, the back or the top of a turtle shell is called their carapace, or I think B might be moving around a little bit, probably going to come check us out in just a moment or so. If you look at the top of B's carapace, you might see some little blotchy white spots and red spots, maybe some green spots there too. And this is what we call epibionts. And that is a really fancy word, but we can break it down. So epi means top, and bionts kind of sounds like bios, biology. That means life. So an epibiont is just life on top. So all of those little blotchy things that we see on the top of their shell there, those are epibionts like barnacles and algae that are growing on top of her shell. Now, barnacles and algae are not harmful to sea turtles. They're not parasitic. They're not feeding on the sea turtle in any way. But sometimes when we see a really heavy epibiont load or tons and tons of barnacles and tons of algae growing on top of a sea turtle, that kind of lets us know that maybe that sea turtle hasn't been moving around or being as active as they probably should be if they were healthy. It kind of lets us know that that turtle's probably been sitting nice and still in their environment to let all of those types of things start to grow, especially if we start to see it growing on their flippers or their neck or their face as well. I think Bee might come over and say hi to us. She loves her rest, but every once in a while she'll come up and be active. There we go. You can see her cute little face. So another thing about Bee, you might notice right off the bat, Bee's actually missing a flipper. So that front right flipper on Bee here is missing. And that was another indicator to us. Maybe that turtle might need our help along with all those barnacles to get a really good look at those barnacles on her shell there too. This is likely from a predator. So their main predator in the wild are going to be sharks, definitely. But flippers can be lost for some other reasons too. It could definitely be a predator bite. It could also be from something like a fishing gear entanglement. Maybe it gets wrapped really tightly around their flipper and they could lose it that way too. Or sometimes turtles could just be born without a flipper. So it could be a lot of different ways, but just by looking at how that wound looked, it's probably a shark that took that flipper there. But the really cool thing about sea turtles, let's see if I can see her up here too, is they are so strong. They're so resilient and adaptive to lots of different challenges that they face out there in the wild. And as you can see, not only is Bee a ginormous sea turtle, but this is a pretty big tank right here. This is actually one of our biggest tanks, and it's full to the top with water. So that means that Bee is definitely not having any trouble swimming, even without that flipper there. And the really cool thing about turtles is even if they're missing two flippers, as long as they have one in front and they have one in back to kind of balance on either side, they're still considered releasable. So that flipper is definitely not going to hinder Bee at all. But along with that heavy load of things like barnacles and algae that were found on Bee when she was floating in the intercoastal, some other things that we noticed about Bee was that she was really underweight. She looked really skinny, and we can kind of see it in her neck there. She was very slow moving, very lethargic. She was also covered in all kinds of things, even leeches and worms too. So she did have a couple parasites that were found all over her body, in her flippers and her neck area too. So we found that Bee had something called debilitated turtle syndrome. And that is a really big mouthful. So even us at the aquarium and our biologists, we like to say DTS to shorten that up. But DTS is a disease that we sometimes see with our loggerheads. And it can look a lot like that. It looks like they're very underweight, they're very slow moving and very inactive. So Bee actually came here last June. So it's almost been a year since Bee's been here with us at the aquarium. And Bee's been given a lot of fluids, a lot of vitamins, and a lot of antibiotics. And that has been helping quite a bit, especially another thing that we like to do is increase their diet, make sure that they're getting lots and lots of nutrition. And another thing that they get from their food is hydration too. So diet is a very important piece to making sure that these turtles can start to feel a little more like themselves and start to be a lot more active. Another piece of taking care of these guys is making sure that their tanks are clean. So we constantly have filters going, and our biologists and caretakers are always checking the water quality, scrubbing these tanks down, because we can think of them kind of like their hospital beds. So if you were sick or you had some kind of infection and you were hanging out in the hospital, it might be a lot harder to recover if your hospital bed was dirty. That could lead to more infections and definitely staying there for a little bit longer than anticipated. So having a clean tank is always very important too. But as you can see, Bee's really active. Our latest update from our biologist is that she is active. She is swimming and eating and pooping well in her tank, which might sound gross to think about. But another really important part to taking care of these animals is making sure that they go to the bathroom pretty regularly. And all of that looks healthy too. So it's looking pretty great for Bee. And I do have another patient that I want to show you today. We'll take a little tour to the other side of our exhibit. We're going to meet another species of turtle, and this one is much, much smaller than the adult loggerhead that we just saw. That's our tiny friend right down here, and their name is Queso. And Queso, we have a couple different fun naming themes that we like to do with our turtles. We had planets and constellations over the winter season, and now we have cheeses as our new naming theme. So this is Queso. And Queso is a juvenile green sea turtle. Again, don't know how old Queso is. But remember, those green sea turtles are the second largest, and one day they'll be 5 or 6 feet long and 500 pounds. And Queso is definitely not anywhere close to that just yet. But Queso is pretty cute. But Queso was actually found in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And Queso was actually caught off of a fishing pier. So as Queso comes by, you might be able to see here, right underneath his neck, he's got lots of stitches over there on the other side of his neck. And unfortunately, Queso was caught by an angler on a fishing pier that had 2 hooks attached to it. So unfortunately, Queso did ingest both of those hooks. Extremely dangerous for our sea turtles, but sometimes they'll go after things on some fishing line because it's kind of easy prey, right? They're thinking, hey, there's a free snack hanging out right over there. Don't see anything wrong with that. And then unfortunately, sometimes they ingest some fishing gear or hooks as well. So the first hook, he was actually taken right over to our surgery suite, and our biologists were able to remove that one pretty easily. And the other one was kind of a little further down there. So we did really hope that Queso was going to be able to kind of pass that hook through his system by himself. And it can be really hard to do surgery on a sea turtle, right? Because they've got that huge shell that goes all around their body. That's a hard shell that they have for protection. So it's not always easy to get to where we need to do surgery on a sea turtle. And after that first surgery was done, Queso was moving around. He was put into a swimming tank, maybe about water half full, so he could get to the surface a little bit easier. But he started to be very active, started to have a little more of an appetite. And really exciting news from our biologists is he went to the bathroom, which is something that our biologists are always looking for, again, to make sure that they're healthy on the inside. A really good indicator of that is that they're going to the bathroom pretty regularly. So our hope that he would pass it by himself did not quite come true. But the good thing is that Queso was such a good patient in our surgery suite that he was ready for his second surgery, and the second surgery went very swimmingly. So it went very well. Those 2 hooks were removed, and as you can see, he's in a full-size tank right now. Great sign that he is being super active and swimming around. As we can see, he's kind of showing off for us today too. But definitely not having any trouble coming up to the surface to take those fresh breaths of air. And they are reptiles, so they will breathe air. They're just better at holding their breath than we are. They can hold their breath anywhere from 4 to 7 hours at a time. Very impressive. So when we begin to consider releasing these sea turtles, what we have to consider is we want to make sure their blood work looks really good, that they look really good, like they're swimming around just like Queso here. And we also want to make sure that we can release them in a safe environment. So the water temperature has to be nice and warm, about 70 degrees or higher. And we can release them here in Charleston, or if it's a little too chilly, we can take them down to Florida or out to the Gulf Stream where it's a little warmer for them. Some other things that we like to do is give them a little pit tag or a flipper tag, kind of like getting your ears pierced, or like a pit tag that you would have on a pet at home. And the cool thing about Queso is that he actually already had a pit tag when he came into the aquarium. So that means that he's been to another facility before. And we are still waiting to hear back more information. But the great thing about that is now we can have all sorts of health information from that other facility once we get back with that as well. So there are lots of things that we can do to protect our sea turtles this season. We saw that we've had turtles that have ingested some fishing gear. Whether we live near the coast or we don't live near the coast at all, there's always something that we have the power to do to make sure that our turtles are safe and healthy and happy out there. And one of my favorite things to suggest is leaving no trace. So what this means is if you love to enjoy the beach or really any outdoor space at all, leaving no trace means leave no evidence that you were out there in the first place. So take all of your belongings back with you. If you take any trash or anything like that out there, make sure that comes back with you and ends up in the proper places and nowhere in the habitats of these animals here, because they could accidentally mistake them for some food. Another great thing to do is if you do like to go to the beach, you can help out by, if you like to build sandcastles or dig holes, make sure you knock those down at the end of the day or fill your holes in at the end of the day too. Especially during nesting season, pretty soon, in about 60 days from when those eggs are laid, we have those little baby turtles. They're just about this big or so. They're going to come out and make their way out to the water for the first time. And those sandcastles or holes can be really big obstacles for them. So flattening out the sand will make it really easy for those baby turtles to make it out there to the wild. And last but not least, if we see a sea turtle in the wild, the best thing to do if we don't think that sea turtle needs any help is to admire them from a distance. We can give them the utmost respect and space to live out their natural lives and do those natural behaviors. And it's always when we're viewing our wildlife respectfully that we are rewarded with the best experiences and seeing the most amazing behaviors that are natural as well. And if you do see a sea turtle that might need some help, best thing to do is call the Department of Natural Resources. And that could be different depending on where you're watching from. But you can look that phone number up and make sure you have it saved for this season, especially during nesting season. And they are a big help in responding to those strandings and making sure that those turtles get the help that they need and taking them to a facility like our own. All right, we learned so much about turtles today and all the things that we can do that we have the power to do to protect them. And would you like to join us back and share your thoughts about that?
Oh my gosh, it has been so awesome, Elena, not only to get to meet Bee and Queso, but to learn about the work that you all are doing at the aquarium, rescue, rehabilitation, and release. And listen, we have tweets coming in. Mrs. Ty Papa's class, hello. Our friend Cam is watching with his 2 daughters. Folks all around, thank you for tuning in. I know you all are loving that up close look at these incredible creatures. So Elena, thank you, thank you, thank you. Can we take a selfie with you and the turtles? How's that sound?
Absolutely. I think my friend Queso is going to be pretty active behind me here, so I'll make sure I can get him in there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Okay, Queso, it's time for your close-up. But for everybody who's tuning in and watching, now is the time we're going to take a selfie. So get your cameras ready, gather in front of your screens, in your classrooms, at home, wherever it is you are watching from. We're going to give you a few seconds to get set up. Cue the music. Everybody say World Turtle Day! Turtle power! Keep smiling! Awesome! Oh my gosh, no doubt those pictures are going to be so awesome. Elena, thank you again for being here. I know everybody is having a great time and learning so much from you and your insights. Folks, we'd love to see those selfies, so definitely share them on social and be sure to tag us using @MicrosoftFlip and please tag our friends at SC Aquarium. So, Elena, it's time for some Q&A. Are you ready for that?
So ready. Can't wait.
Okay. So we have students watching from Madison Elementary. Hello to the scholars at Madison Elementary. Their question is, what are some of the common turtle injuries that you see coming into the aquarium?
That is an excellent question. Turtles come in here for a lot of different reasons. We saw some fishing gear entanglement or some hook and line. That's something that we see very frequently in the summer months when a lot of people are out there fishing. So that's a good thing to be aware of. If you like to fish, make sure you keep your eyes out on the water and just be aware of that and have the Department of Natural Resources ready if anything like that happens. But we see things like boat strikes occasionally too when people are really active in the summertime out on the water. And sometimes we see natural things too, like shark bites, like we saw with Bee and their missing flipper.
All right, fascinating. So John is watching and is curious about how old can turtles live to be?
Great question. So the cool thing about this is we're still learning. A lot of scientists are actually still learning so much about sea turtles. They spend their whole life out there in the ocean, so they're kind of hard to study. But we think that they live anywhere between 80 and 100 years old. But if anyone is thinking that they want to become a sea turtle biologist, maybe you guys are going to be the ones to figure that out for sure.
You never know, right? That's awesome. So we have another question from Madison Elementary. What is the average amount of time that turtles stay with you for rehabilitation?
Great question. They can stay usually anywhere from about 4 months to 2 years. 2 years is the longest we've ever had a turtle with us. And it is usually the turtles that have that debilitated turtle syndrome, or DTS, like B, that end up staying a little bit longer just because it takes them a little while to recover because of the extent of their disease or that sickness. So B's been here for about a year, but it's looking pretty good for her. So I don't think she'll be here for the full 2. So you'll have to keep updated with her blog and see whenever B ends up being a release candidate.
Oh yeah, go B, go. We're all cheering for you. Okay, so you mentioned tracking them upon release. We have a lot of viewers who are curious, how many miles can turtles swim, or the distance that they go, perhaps?
That is a really great question. Turtles can swim pretty much all over the ocean, and the tags that we have that on our turtles don't necessarily let us know exactly where they're going, but they kind of let us know a lot of health information about the animal and keep track of if they've been in other facilities before, like Queso behind me here. So we don't get to know all the time where our turtles are going, but they can migrate across oceans, and most of the males will spend their entire life way out in the middle of the ocean, whereas the females spend a little more time closer to the shorelines when it comes to nesting.
Oh, wow. It's incredible to think that, these animals are so far out in the ocean as well. Now, Joel is watching. Hello, Joel. Thanks for tuning in. Has a question about what turtles eat and if different species have different diets.
Exactly. Yeah, hit the nail on the head. So different species do have different diets. This little green behind me here, I bet you can guess what green sea turtles like to eat. They love to eat their veggies. So they eat lots of things like seagrasses and algae, and they've got special jaws that are shaped kind of serrated, almost like a little built-in fork and knife to make it easier to chew down on those seagrasses. Whereas B, like our loggerhead sea turtles, have really flattened and pretty strong jaws. So they like to eat things a little crunchier. They love to eat crustaceans. Blue crabs are one of their favorite snacks, or horseshoe crabs, or even snails too. And some some sea turtles love to eat jellies too. Lots of them.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. It's so cool to hear about the different diets too. Now, we know a lot of folks are curious about this. It's about the work that you do, the education that you had leading up to this work. So we'd love to hear a little bit more about how you get to do the work that you do and your journey to working at the aquarium.
Yeah, so I went to school for marine biology, and I actually started volunteering here at the aquarium as soon as I went to school. So if you're interested in a career with animals, volunteering is an excellent way to kind of start that out and see if you like it or not. But whether you kind of want to be a biologist or a zookeeper or a veterinarian, or maybe science isn't super your thing, but you really like hanging out with animals, there are so many different things that you can do, especially in the zoo and aquarium world. We have really great writers here and photographers and storytellers, and people that are really great with data. So just figure out what you're passionate about, and there's always a way for you to kind of combine those and still get to work with animals, even if maybe being a vet isn't the path that you want.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So I want to ask also, your work in rescue, rehabilitation, and release. And there are oftentimes folks, I live in California, I'm not far from the ocean, or folks who might live in a place where they do encounter a sea animal in the wild. What are some tips we all need to know about how we can continue to help protect them and their habitats, especially if we happen upon one in the wild?
Yeah, definitely. So a great way is to really be mindful of your trash, making sure that that's not ending up anywhere outside where it can end up in these habitats. And maybe a sea turtle might think that a plastic bag looks a lot like a jellyfish. I know sometimes even for me, when I see a plastic bag in the water, sometimes it's hard for me to tell too. So it's got to be a lot harder for our sea turtles. So being very mindful of our trash, and maybe using more reusable items instead of some plastic items, like a reusable water bottle instead of a plastic one, or a reusable bag is great too. But whether you live near the coast, or if you live in the middle of the country and you're not super close to the ocean, water is always moving. It's always taking things with it. So we're all connected to the water, whether we live right next to it or not. So anything we do in our outdoor spaces always has the ability to impact our oceans and our sea turtles.
I love that. That is brilliant and powerful advice. So what we do in the water that we're around definitely has a bigger impact. So the leave no trace is great advice. I have to ask, as we get ready to wrap up, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with the folks who are watching?
Definitely. I'm sure y'all have really great suggestions of what we can do to help protect our sea turtles too. Sea turtles are what we call an umbrella species as well. So what that means is when we do those things to protect our sea turtles, we're protecting way more than our sea turtles. We're protecting all of the ocean ecosystem that is related to our sea turtles as well. And again, whether you live near the coast or not so close to the coast, all of us have the ability to be turtle superheroes and do what we can to save the species and our oceans as well.
Oh my gosh. So everybody who's listening in, remember that you are a turtle superhero, and together we can help make contributions to impact the environment and help these species. What a special time, Elena. Thank you. I'm so glad that we've been able to get to celebrate World Turtle Day with you this week. We cannot even thank you enough for your time and for inspiring us all and sharing ways that we can make a positive impact. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much for joining today and letting me talk about one of my favorite animals and thinking that turtles are cool enough to celebrate. So I appreciate that, and I know that you all do to help make sure that they're safe and healthy out there.
They are totally cool. I just have to say it too. Shell-ebrate, right? All right, Elena, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And folks listening in, we appreciate you all for spending the last half hour with us learning together. We are so grateful. I always love getting to spend this time together today. But even though we're wrapping up for today, remember we have flip events almost every week. You can head over to aka.ms/flip events to join us next week. We'll be learning all about otters. And on June 8th, we're going to be celebrating World Oceans Day with our friends from California State Parks. So don't forget, all of our events are available on demand and you can watch them anytime. That's it for today, friends. I'm your host, Ann Cosma, and on behalf of everybody at Flip, our amazing guest, Elena, and all of the friends at the South Carolina Aquarium, we want to thank you for spending your time with us. We'll see you next time.